Cuyahoga County Committee of the Whole meeting for Tuesday, February 8th, 2022 is now called to order. Andrea, would you please call the roll?
Good afternoon, everyone. As a reminder to all in attendance, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the county's YouTube page. It is now 2:36 p.m. Calling the roll, Ms. Turner.
Present.
Ms. Stevens. Ms. Stevens is absent at the moment. Ms. Simon. Ms. Simons is absent at the moment. Ms. Baker.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Present.
Mr. Sweeney.
Present.
Mr. Tuma.
Here.
Mr. Gallagher.
Here.
Mr. Schran.
Here.
Ms. Conwell. Ms. Conwell is absent at the moment. Council President Jones.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, Andrea. Andrea, has anyone signed in for public comment?
No public comment has been received.
Welcome to the confirmation hearing at which council will consider the appointment of Brandy Carney as Director of the Department of Public Safety and Justice Services. For a little background, the Department of Public Safety and Justice Services was established by ordinance in 2011 to replace the former Department of Justice Affairs. The department was previously headed by Alex Pelham. The Department of Public Safety and Justice Services administers the county's public safety grants, the Regional Enterprise Data Sharing System, and oversees the Office of Emergency Management, the Cuyahoga Emergency Communication Systems, and the Witness Victim Service Center. The hearing process will proceed as follows. The nominee will be offered an opportunity to address her qualifications, motivations for seeking the position, and outlooks and plans regarding the office. Council members will then be offered the opportunity to ask questions of the nominee. We will do so in rounds, allowing each council member to ask 2 questions per round until all council questions have been answered. Once all questions have been answered, we will entertain a motion to recommend that council approve or reject the nomination at the 3rd reading of the legislation at the February 22nd council meeting. Thank you, and let's begin. Madam Clerk, if you would read the resolution into the record.
For the record, Ms. Conwell has joined the meeting.
Thank you.
Resolution 2022-0007, confirming the county executive's appointment of Brandy Carney upon her taking the oath of office as Director of Public Safety and Justice Services.
Carney, you may address the council.
Good afternoon. I think the last time I was here, I didn't get a chair, so thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, Council President and council members. So happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss myself, my qualifications, and history with both the county as well as the Department of Public Safety and Justice Services, and my interest in this position. I look forward to answering any questions you have. Public Safety and Justice Services excites me. I'm passionate about the work and truly enjoy being part of it. A little bit of myself, and some of you might know this just because of the history with the county, but I figured I'd briefly cover. Throughout high school, I was heavily involved in dance and trained with Cleveland Ballet before they relocated to San Jose. I attended Oklahoma City University for dance, but following an injury came home and was excited about working government and city planning. I completed an urban affairs degree from Cleveland State University. In 2006, I began working for the county, at which time it was the Department of Justice Affairs, now the Department of Public Safety and Justice Services. I started off actually in emergency management office, and an area that continues to excite me to this day regarding the work that they do. Family is very important to me. I've been with my husband, amazing and hilarious, over 25 years. He's a longshoreman at the Port of Cleveland, and we have an amazing, special 13-year-old daughter named McKenna. After working within Public Safety and Justice Services in a number of positions over a 10-year period, in 2016, I held the director position, and a lot of great work was done. The restructuring of Public Safety Justice Services I worked at that time has continued to work incredibly well, where a single fiscal and grants unit is able to support the other 5 agencies in the department. This negates the need for duplicate individual fiscal or grants position within each public safety justice service agency, making an effective yet efficient operation. Additionally, a dedicated grants unit has allowed our department to be very successful in attaining grants internally by checking almost daily any new opportunities, but also sending opportunities to other agencies we find that might be suitable. Our grants department also supports external community grant needs. For example, we've worked with local fire departments not only on providing grant matches, but even providing grant writing for them when there's a need. Not a position that is often found, for example, in a fire department. We've been very successful in even getting new fire trucks and an EMS squad for local agencies, not an easy request to have granted. I was in that position for approximately 2 years. Following another 2 years, I held the public safety chief position and was able to work day to day with agencies directly, including the sheriff's office, medical examiner, and clerk of courts, as well as with partner agencies such as the courts, prosecutor's office, and public defender. This was an opportunity to learn so much more in depth about these agencies and yet the difficult and extremely critical work they do. That experience is a huge benefit to me now back in public safety. I have a better know-how anytime an opportunity comes that we need to partner or work together with those agencies rather than duplicating resources unknowingly. I communicate regularly with Chief Corey and the agencies within his cluster, but this structure allows a manageable span of control for the many safety or justice agencies we have and all the work we do in the county. In January 2020, I became Chief of Special Operations for the county. This job had very specific responsibilities, including managing the opioid settlement funds and getting a diversion center here in Cuyahoga. But I also continued to maintain oversight of the Public Safety Justice Services Department. The time specifically in the special operations position allowed me to work almost daily with social service and support agencies such as the Adams Board, as well as so many of the amazing mental health and addiction institutions and agencies throughout the county. I will continue to do these duties, such as the Diversion Center and management of the Opioid Fund, now as part of the Public Safety Justice Services Department. But the time in that role allowed me to gain a deep understanding of those agencies and institutions in Cuyahoga and their daily operations. Now, when opportunities for collaboration may arise or there's a need to identify social service resources, I have a good knowledge of what we have here in Cuyahoga, both the people and their respective operations. Last summer, when Alex left this position, I was very excited at the opportunity to hopefully be back into the position. The director job deals much more on a day-to-day basis with projects and agency operations. Much work is done externally supporting and engaging with Cuyahoga public safety and justice agencies, such as regular interaction with local police and fire agencies. I enjoy this work and have significant experience doing it and missed some of it over the last few years. The Public Safety Justice Service staff really is some of the best in the county, and I really feel that way. The department deputy director, Bert, as well as the business service manager, Mary Beth Vaughn, I enjoy so much working with them, and they really are extremely dedicated, great county workers. After launching the opioid settlement funds and creating the Diversion Center, I'm excited to return to the public safety role where my strengths will be most helpful to the county. To highlight a few successes, I've led and managed the emergency management staff, including activations of our Emergency Operations Center. These include weather events, but also events such as the RNC, H1N1, ARCO fire, and the last 2 years' work of being done with COVID operations. During Hurricane Sandy, I coordinated the state, and Cuyahoga ultimately received a presidential declaration, and ultimately $10 million of public assistance came in. For COVID operations, we coordinated with local agencies and cities on an ongoing basis, often daily. We ordered and distributed over 23 million units of PPE and even completed the construction of a PPE holding facility within the county garage. Currently, we have all of our PPE cataloged and organized within this facility. We have completed a plan that has minimum cash levels identified for each piece of PPE in the event another huge supply chain disruption happens or even another pandemic-like an event. So we are prepared to provide a 10 to 14-day supply of PPE to be self-sustaining. I co-authored our 911 county consolidation plan and worked for years on explaining the need for 911 consolidations. At the beginning of the project, we had 48 primary dispatch centers in the county. At that time, the second most in the state had just over 10. Today, we have only 21 centers plus our own CCOMs. I led the relocation of our current CCOMs location downtown Cleveland to Bedford Heights, including overseeing the 911 technology installation and operation. As Special Operations Chief, I was tasked with opening a diversion center for the county. In a very short time, the diversion center was open and has been operational since May of last year. I will continue to prioritize this project, particularly now working with local police agencies to make sure they all understand and use this resource, but also reaching out to agencies such as Downtown Cleveland Alliance, who interact so often with individuals in need of this service to make sure they understand and any of their needs or questions are met so they will use our center. At the same time, I continue to manage the opioid settlement fund we've received. Internal and external agencies continue to use these dollars for critical projects. And they report quarterly to me on the data for predetermined metrics to assure the projects continue to be successful and add value to supporting the terrible opioid epidemic. I have significant, apologies. Relationships are key to me. I've built my career on the importance of relationships and collaboration. I regularly work internally with county executive, council members, and department directors and staff. Externally, I regularly work with and attend meetings and have great relationships with fire chiefs, police chiefs, as well as mayors, volunteer organizations like Citizen Corps and Red Cross, and the maritime community, as well as the city of Cleveland. The Public Safety Justice Service Director and supporting staff maintain strong external relationships, particularly with those agencies I've mentioned. While over the years I've continued to be involved and maintain these, I like to be even more involved in the day-to-day operations, and I look forward to getting more engaged as I was previously, all for the safety of our residents. I'm a hands-on leader and team player. I like to start and, most importantly, complete new projects, and even those that are innovative, increasing technology or increasing efficiencies and services. Public Safety Justice Services is a true support agency for our community. In closing, I have a passion for the job I'm currently holding within the department. If given this opportunity, I look forward to continuing to work with all of you, the county executive, and other county departments and external partners to meet the needs of the community. I will continue to be fiscally aware and responsible while also moving the Department of Public Safety and Justice Services forward. So thank you for allowing me for that opening, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Brandy. Are there any questions from council? We'll start with Councilman Miller.
Oh my gosh, that's so nice.
Councilwoman.
Mr. President, Director, I'd like to congratulate you on your recommendation for appointment and for all you and to thank you for all your significant service to Cuyahoga County. I have two questions for openers, and the first one is that there are three very important positions, all of which you have held. The director position, the chief position, and the special operations position. And my question is if you could describe ideally what would be the relationship between those three positions. How do they work together?
Sure, thank you. Through the council president to the councilman, thank you for the question. So as I mentioned in my opening, we have a number of social service and justice agencies in Cuyahoga County, public safety agencies. So I appreciate right now the structure in that, for example, Chief Corey is Chief Corey is over and works directly with the agencies, I shouldn't say over, the Sheriff's Department, the medical examiner, the clerk of courts, those agencies. And the agencies that the director has responsibility for are some of those that work often externally with agencies such as emergency management and CCOMs and witness victim. So the structure works very well now, I think, in having that divide, so there is a manageable span of control. But it really encourages that there's constant communication between the two roles. As I mentioned, I do work regularly with Chief Corey as well as those other agencies. It's very important. I think my time in those positions has really helped me to gain such a better understanding of how they worked. But that communication is critical to making sure that we're not duplicating those resources or positions within the county.
And is the special operations position currently filled, and what would be the relationship between that position, your position, and the chief's position?
So through the council president to the councilman, thank you. I will continue to do the oversight of the opioid fund as well as the diversion center work. But I also have the public safety justice service staff that have been really great and continue to work on those projects. So I will continue to do that role as well as the director of public safety and justice services if confirmed.
And Mr. Chairman, Director, my second question is that I have heard some discussion about that maybe the idea of building a new emergency operations center, which we considered at one time and came close to moving forward to, but then let go of in favor of a smaller concept. I would be interested in your thoughts as to whether we should revive that concept now that we've had the experience of what we've had to go through on COVID-19.
Sure. Thank you for the question. I would just say, we appreciate an emergency management. Sometimes it takes an event or a large event for people to really realize the work that they do, because so often it's planning and you're hoping something that does not happen, or you're planned accordingly if it does. I would add, when I started in Cuyahoga County, it's kind of amazing that a county this size, we actually didn't have an emergency operations center at all. So the one that is currently our EOC, as they call it, Emergency Operations Center in the Juvenile Justice Center, is very functioning. As I mentioned before, we used it for the RNC, and not just internally within the county that we have individuals. We have external agencies that come into our EOC and sit and fill different functions. That's external fire chiefs or police chiefs or hospitals or health department. So all of those for our events also have a seat within our EOC. And our EOC at the Juvenile Justice Center that I put together along with staff works really well. I mean, I think anyone would argue that you could always use more space, but it is a functioning EOC. We have the technology and capabilities. If there is direction to go for a new EOC, but I haven't heard that at this time, but the current operation works well where we're at.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Through the chair to Brandy, welcome and thank you for everything that you've done so far with us and for the county. Since the start of the new government, the Department of Public Safety has facilitated a number of public safety answering point, the PSAPs, consolidations. How many PSAPs do we have today, and what is our target number of PSAPs, and are we still trying to consolidate further?
Sure. Through the council president to the chairwoman, thank you for the question. We currently have 21 PSAPs, or public safety answering points. These are primary answering points plus CCOMs. When we started the plan and when it was released in 2013, we had 48 primaries and 2 secondaries. So we've had significant consolidation over the years, which has been really successful. It's a local decision to consolidate. An individual city can make that decision on their own, but really working to get the reason why consolidation is so important has been critical and so helpful in the process. If there's a really bad emergency, for example, or even on a street or a road, if you have one dispatcher sitting in the seat, while on a day-to-day basis they can provide good and direct support to residents and know their residents, the minute anything happens where a couple calls come in, there's an accident and you get 2 or 3 cell phone calls, that one individual gets inundated with calls and it's difficult for them to answer all those 911 calls. So there's really so many benefits to consolidation, and it really has proved to be successful because of the regional centers that we've had throughout the county. I continue to encourage consolidations and would like to see more consolidating. I think there's some cities, or I know that just at this time, they just aren't interested in consolidating, but I think we need to continue to get that number down. I would like to see below 10. Again, it's not our decision, but I think as we continue to show the benefits, people will continue to consolidate.
Out at the beginning of these conversations, the state had said something about 5. Was that the number?
So there's been different conversations. There is with respect to the funding that we receive. If you have the way that the ORC is written, in that you couldn't share the money with more than 5 PSAPs or initial answering points at that time. And so right now, an initial answering point would be described as only CCOMs. But there is restrictions on sharing the money. So they do have some restrictions. They never actually, as they had talked about in the past, said that you had to get down to a certain number. That could still happen, but that hasn't happened. But they too have encouraged consolidation for the benefits that I mentioned before, as well as others.
And through the chair to Brandy, I'm just trying to, the adding of the job functions that for Alex's job. So I'm just trying to get it clear in my head, like
Sure.
you're moving and
Sure.
what exactly are you increasing? Like some of the job functions that he had, you're now going to be over, but then you just made a statement that you don't know if they're gonna still hire an EOC person, so.
No, I apologize if I wasn't clear. So I will be doing exactly what Alex was doing. However, additionally, I will also be responsible for the opioid fund, management of the opioid fund, as well as the diversion center project. So those projects that I have been doing the last 2 years.
Is that looked at as a promotion or?
It was a even transfer.
Unilateral?
Yes, that's correct.
And last question, Chair. Please explain the difference between the 911 call from a landline versus a cell phone.
Sure, happy to. So when someone calls 911 from a landline, that goes directly to the place that you're calling directly. If you call 911 from a cell phone anywhere in Cuyahoga County now, that's first going to go to CCOMS, which is the county 911 center that we operate out of Bedford Heights. In the hospital. We ask where's the location of the emergency, and then we transfer that call to another dispatch center in the county that will call police, fire, or EMS out. So that's the difference. A landline goes directly to the city. The call from a cell phone first goes to CCOMS. It's triage there, and it goes to the dispatch center.
Any delays in that?
I don't think I could answer that question and say no, obviously, because it's an extra step. I would say the reason that structure had worked in the past is the way that 911 technology, which is kind of crazy how archaic it really is because it relies on towers rather than GPS. So that's something that the state's been working for a long time, and the towers aren't always exactly accurate. So when you had 48 different PSAPs previously, and there was an opportunity for calls to get rung in all different dispatch centers. So there was value in having somewhere like CCOMS where they all go to and they're triaged from there and sent to the appropriate center. As we continue to get our numbers of PSAPs down, there's less likely for an error when a cell phone calls and goes directly to a dispatch center. So I will say that right now, just yesterday, actually, we evaluated RFPs for a technology consultant. And one of the main projects they're going to be doing is looking at the towers right now and how things have changed over the years, and really make a recommendation, or at least provide us with data on, previously when we looked at it, there was an 80% or higher chance of a call not going to the right dispatch center if we weren't using someone like CCOMS. This is many years ago. Again, as we've gotten down in the number of dispatch centers, that's not likely the case. So they're going to look at that and provide us with a countywide analysis, and then we'll have to make some decisions from there on operations.
Thank you, and thank you for your service. You've touched a lot of lives
Thank you.
during your time here, and that's quite remarkable.
Thank you.
I guess my question is the added responsibilities of what this job entitles, adding the opiate fund management and then also the diversion center. Do you find that to be overwhelming in addition to now the roles that are in place for this position, or do you think that you're have the ability and also the time to manage?
Thank you for the question. I absolutely think I have the time and ability to manage. As I mentioned, there's great staff, but even in the special operations position, I still had the Department of Public Safety with the director, but I still had responsibility for them. Even in the last few months without Alex, as I mentioned before, I have really amazing staff in public safety. I honestly can't say that enough. And they've provided support and assistance in so many ways. So we really are comfortable with the current makeup. And it's nice having their expertise and knowledge in helping with some of those projects. So I am confident that it's a good fit now with those.
And if I may, do you foresee needing extra support, an assistant that could manage through? I know you have a great support system, but I mean someone who perhaps can help you with some of the higher level work that you'll be expected to do.
I appreciate that question, but I'm really confident, as I mentioned, in our deputy director, our business services manager. We have great leadership, and I think we're a great team in moving forward, so I don't anticipate that.
And if I may, just for last, and I don't want to add to your to your responsibilities, but what role do you see you playing with the new jail?
Sure. Thank you for the question. So really a support role, that really is the sheriff's responsibility, obviously, our jail administrator, Gibson, Chief Corey. We're a support agency for them, but that process and even the jail committee, I usually provide diversion updates because that's a component of it. But outside of that, that's really within the other public safety cluster for that piece.
Good to know. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you, Chair.
You are in charge of also the opiate settlement dollars.
Mr. Tuma, can you
Sorry
turn
about
on
that.
your microphone?
Yep, sorry, I
Thank
thought I
you.
hit it. You are in charge of the opiate settlement dollars. And a few weeks ago, we had you and I had a nice conversation about dreaming big, as opposed to just using it for short-term treatment. A vision of creating a fund, and we heard that Dr. Boutros almost immediately supported that same concept. Could you go through how you would envision this could work and what it could mean, and how it could be a multiplier effect for actually opiate treatment?
Sure. Thank you for the question. So as Councilman Schron has said, we have been looking at opportunities to use the opioid dollars as an investment fund or in different ways over the last year. I think we all know, and as we're doing now, we can put money towards prevention, which we're working on. We can put money towards recovery centers and addiction centers, which we just recently provided about $11 million to those local residential centers. But there's also, as they say, there's risk and reward, and the opioid epidemic is here, and sometimes there's some risk that has to be taken in order to get some of that larger reward for really tackling the opioid problem. So what we've talked about, and we've talked to some of you council members about, is an opportunity to invest in new technologies or innovative opportunities to, it might be a risk, it might not always be a win, but an opportunity to find something that could tackle the addiction problem at the opioid epidemic at another level. So I would say we've been working through that process. We've talked to some of the council members, not all of them at this point, to receive some feedback. I'm encouraged by it. I'm encouraged by some of their feedback in tackling through some of the questions. And so that's how I would see it operating.
And have you had discussions with perhaps some fundraisers or people outside of this area that could see a multiplier effect of our dollars, so that instead of just coming back in 2 or 3 years and finding they're gone, that we actually could be creating a reoccurring revenue fund outside of this area? Have you had some discussions with people of that nature?
Thank you for your question. So we have a consultant that was hired by the Cleveland Foundation actually for this project. And she has a company called 17A. And throughout the last year, and she has some background in this field in capital investments, she's actually had conversations as part of this project with local hospital leadership, with some external agencies, some innovative agencies for technologies. And so those are some ongoing conversations that have been had. I've been part of some of those discussions, and I haven't led them directly, but have been part of them, just to hear their input about having a fund like this and their hopeful participation if we move forward.
Great, thank you very much. I'm excited about having a reoccurring fund as opposed to one that will eventually run out of money and will still be with the problem. It would be great to solve the problems or help have business solutions that could actually help solve the problems long term. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mrs. Carney, how are you?
Good, thank you.
I hope you say thank you for the question after I'm done asking it. First and foremost, I go with subject matter expert, and thank you for signing up for it. This is more of a personal note, just with your ability to stay on, because consistency is very, very important in most departments. And just looking, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, if you count you ones, different ones since 2014 in regards to directors. And I just want to make sure you've thought it all the way through. The time you have in the county, trying to get the PERS, new administration coming in. Are you protected through the chair?
Sure. So no, this position is an at-will position. So a new executive can obviously come in and make those decisions. But I am confident that this is still the path that I'd like to take.
Yeah, through the chair. I don't mean to get personal,
Sure,
but I want to publicly state the reality that you're signing up for.
Absolutely.
And the risk that you're taking, and emphasize, from my perspective, what a perfect match this is from your skill set to the job that's needed. And if you want to take your mask off, you can. I'm here to ask the council president, but you're going to be talking for a while.
Thank you.
So, as Councilwoman Baker said, thank you for signing up for this. And I just want to make sure that you're able to serve as long as you can in this capacity. That's it. So,
Again, I do appreciate the question. You know, it was a really great, the last 6 years, as I explained, or 4 years, the different positions, but I really enjoy, and I know my skill set is really valuable within the Public Safety Justice Service Department. You know, if somebody comes in, I'm an at-will employee, I'm well aware of that, but this is the path I'd like to take.
and thank you. And one last tiny one, Mr. President. And just the respect that you have from your coworkers. That's what I've seen for the year that I've been here. And that's so vitally important from being the person that's making a decision and having the team, as you said, all working in concert to make sure the job gets done. And I see that as an evidence of why you're going to be successful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you so much.
Councilwoman Turner?
Thank you, Council President. Mrs. Carney.
Hi.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for asking.
I look forward to seeing you on Friday.
I know, I was just ready to say that. The ability to commitment, dedication, all qualities I'm sure you had as a ballet dancer. And I'm sure you'll bring those same attributes to this role. Today is my 90th day as your colleagues.
Nice.
And I'm leaving some of the more technical questions to my colleagues because I'm sure they know you better than I and your work as well. The question that I have, and I am looking forward to spending some time with you this week as we tour the juvenile center and the diversion center.
The diversion center. I think I won't be at your juvenile center trip, but the diversion
Made
center.
that happen for me. Thank you. And so the question that I have is more about your leadership style, your vision for public safety and justice services in the county as someone who's just, been a member of the public. And I know we often hear a lot of bad news and not some of the more good things that happen in this space. And I was wondering, what could you share with us to help restore some of the eroded confidence and trust that the public has for us, giving, many of the negative things that we hear in the news every day.
Sure.
And what are some of the things that you are proud of? So yeah, if you could talk on that.
Thank you. So excellent question. Particularly within public safety justice services, there's so much good work that's done. And as you mentioned, so often you only hear about the negative. For example, the emergency management staff, as I mentioned, very dedicated, constantly reaching out to our partners, our police and fire partners, have great relationships with them, working with them when they have a need, thinking about new projects or new ideas that are going to help the county, but support at the local municipal level also. So really great work. And I've actually been encouraged over the last couple of months, since I've been more engaged within this role, to hear some good things about staff. It's really nice to hear some of those good things instead of always the bad that you sometimes read in the paper and such. The county, throughout the county, there's great departments, there's great leadership, there's really great things happening. So it's disappointing at times to only hear the negative. The staff within public safety and justice services, they don't get too down on the negative often. They do a good job. They persevere forward, and I really appreciate that about them. It's really a supportive role within everybody there. They all work together. As I mentioned at the beginning, the way that the department is structured, it's really in a supportive role, like some of the services, the business and the grants. And it allows for good communication within the 5 agencies within the department. So just keeping good communication within them and the other internal and external agencies, keeping your head up, as you say, and keep doing the right thing and identifying not just what we're doing now, but what projects can continue to lead us forward. So we're not just, running in motion is really important to me and something that I want my staff to continue to do and to remember.
Well, thank you, and I look forward to
Thank you.
Developing our relationship. And
Thank you. Me too.
Ms. Carney, tell us about your role, your department's role out with the Diversion Center. You touched briefly on the planning of the jail and how that maybe lightly touched, but what role do you see your department playing?
So the Diversion Center, thank you, opened in May of last year. We have an active board right now, a 9-member board. Myself and Chief of Staff Mason sit on that board. It's chaired by Dr. Boutros from Metro Health. We have great representation on it from different agencies. GCC, Greater Cleveland Congregation, is represented on the board. A local mental health and addiction, one of our executive directors who's been around a very long time leading a local 501 in that area, is active on our board. We have one of the public defenders on the board that leads the mental health unit. We have the Cleveland Chief of Police was on the board, and we're hoping that will continue also. So really great representation on the board and engaged. I will continue to look at, I regularly go over to the center. I talk to them about the numbers, the client numbers. I look at the feedback that the clients that are providing, that the police are providing, making sure we had a metric to say, let's make sure that every time a police comes, that it's within 10 minutes they're in and out of there. We don't want it to be a long process because we want to make sure it's easy for them to use. So making sure all those things stay and making sure it's used and it's used well. Right now, there's about a third of our police departments in the county that have used it. My goal is to continue as a priority to make sure that all of the police departments use it, or if they're not, that I specifically ask them why, or if there's a reason or something that we can help them with, or, help them get over that hump, because unfortunately, there's individuals everywhere in the county that have a mental health or addiction need at times. And so encouraging the admission rates, we looked at those admissions and they weren't where we wanted them to be. In October of this year, we did expand admissions so it wasn't just for law enforcement in lieu of arrest, but also allowed for family and friend referrals and self-referrals and agency referrals. So really looking at how we can have this resource, and we know it's a need, and how we can link that up with the people that need this resource, and that any hurdle that they might have, be it, an officer taking so long, or getting to the center, or whatever it is, that we get rid of those hurdles so that they're using this amazing resource that we were able to put together for them. So that'll stay an absolute priority for me.
Serve on the board and play your role. How do you see increasing the population within that diversion center?
Again, individual conversations with police. The last few weeks have been really great with City of Cleveland, and they've increased usage. I was really happy and thankful to Mayor Bibb, came in very quickly, reached out to us within the first 2 weeks, toured the diversion center, went back the same day he toured the center. They actually changed their policy and put it out. So really really thankful of that. The interim police chief there, Chief Drummond, has been extremely responsive. Currently, the last few weeks, they've continued to take people there. We're hoping that the numbers will continue to grow, but making sure that relationship, as well as the departments all throughout the county, will continue to use the center. If there's a gap that we're not filling and that there's a need and someone needs to use the center, making sure that that's an appropriate admissions option that we have. So I will say that when we started this process, we worked really closely with other places that are really successful. For example, Bexar County, San Antonio, Texas. They said it took about 3 years for them to really to get the admissions and the numbers. And I know that seems like a long time, but changing, for example, law enforcement and something that they might have done for 30 years, and changing ways and giving someone an opportunity instead of jail, it does take time. So I'd like to see it all done yesterday, but just making sure that, we don't take our foot off the pedal, and we keep moving it forward and keep addressing the needs, and really the awareness is, as I said, will continue my priority.
Cleveland Mayor Bibb.
Council President, can you speak a little louder into the microphone, please? Thank you.
You mentioned after Cleveland Mayor Bibb toured that they changed their policy. Are you referring to the role of their prosecutor expecting to be notified after every encounter with law enforcement?
That is correct. There was a requirement that anytime they took someone to the diversion center, that they had to first call the prosecutor, and the prosecutor had to be notified, and that was lifted from their policy. That's correct.
Any further questions in the first round from anyone who has not yet spoken? Councilwoman Simon, and then, I'm sorry.
I'll defer to
Gallagher and-
Councilman
yes.
Gallagher.
That's true. That's true, and I'm feeling it. Mrs. Carney, hello.
Hi, Councilman. How are you?
Good. Just a little history for my colleagues on the directorship. We had Sheriff Bova, who, in my opinion, was one of our better sheriffs. The executive had to, for whatever reason, and I suspect political chips, wanted to move Cliff Pinckney in there, had to put Bova somewhere, so created this position for Bova. wasn't happy there, and we end up losing Bova, and we all know what happened at the jail and everything that transpired there. I thought it was a car wreck from the beginning. It was unnecessary to do what he did, and we paid a heavy, heavy price. I would imagine that the new executive, whomever that person is going to come in and take a look at top to bottom what is necessary and needed. But you gave some testimony earlier on the EOC. We met privately, and it seems to collide from different ends on EOC. Take me through it
please.
again, or
Yeah.
maybe did I mishear you?
Happy to. So what I mentioned about the EOC is when I started in 2006, we did not have an EOC. We currently have an EOC that is functioning. We use it. I mentioned I think we could always use more space for an EOC. We don't have, for example, breakout rooms specifically. An EOC sometimes has a separate executive policy room and breakout rooms for when you're in an operation. But our current EOC location that's in the Juvenile Justice Center, we have used for a number of activation events, and people come in, external agencies come in. So so please tell me where they're colliding.
And again, history for my colleagues that haven't been here because we have new people. The Emergency Operations Center was considered a necessity for a county this size, much like Lake County has one, which is what, 1/10 our size, maybe? So once again, Cuyahoga County finds itself behind the 8 ball. This was in the planning during the administration with Fitzgerald. A lot of work was done on that. Money was set aside. We actually had a groundbreaking. The news media was there. All the questions were answered as far as need, want, and what it would provide. And after the groundbreaking and dirt was moved, the executive decided, and he told me this, I don't know what the real story was, but we didn't have the money for it. And this, of course, was the earlier days of the Bush administration, where the Chicken Little sky is falling, we don't have any money, blah, 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 of which, of course, the council proved that we did have money in a 80-some page response to his going to the media stating we had no money. He kills the Emergency Operations Center after we broke ground, has to go fix that, pay off Broadview Heights roads or whatever he had to pay him off in, and then we find ourselves with this. Of course, we got shoehorned into the Juvenile Justice Center, and I got to tell you, I have not heard one good thing about the atmosphere, how clearly it just isn't an emergency operations center, to the point where we can't call it an emergency operations center because by definition, it doesn't serve as an emergency operations center. It has to be standalone. It has to withstand hurricanes and forest fires, all kinds of things. So that doesn't. But that was a little bit of the history. So that got shoehorned in there. You know that, and I know that. We all know the politics that gets played around various things. We're in a political world. And I met with you, and I told you that one of the things on my mind was to revisit the Emergency Operations Center. Am I hearing that you're okay with the Emergency Operations Center in the Juvenile Justice Center, and other than space, it's just fine?
So through the chairman to the councilman, what I'd like to say is when I said the comment, as far as on the administration side, I have not been told that we are moving forward with an Emergency Operations Center, to my comment earlier. And it is called, and it is functioning as an emergency operations center. Now, to your point, Councilman, when you have an emergency operations center that can, that's called a Class 3 operations center that can have hurricane, windows and structural, that can maintain structural damage. There's different levels of EOC that can function. But ours is absolutely an emergency operations center that has functioned in these events. As I stated, there's large operation centers throughout the whole county. There's opportunities for growth in different rooms, but our current center does function as an EOC. So I would not say that it doesn't function as an EOC,
It
Councilman.
functions as that, but by definition, it isn't. By definition, it isn't. I'm just saying by definition. I'm sure it functions the way we would hope it would. But is it ideal? No, nothing's really ideal. Say you're in a position, and this is a hypothetical, not to say that it actually ever happened, but say you have a councilman that says certain documents are due after, say, a death in the jail. And certain councilman tells you, I want those documents before they're released to the public, to the press. Those documents are delivered to the executive a week or two before, and they're sitting on his desk. And you happen to know that they're on the desk. Do you tell that councilman they're on the desk, and do you tell the executive that councilman asked for those?
To the councilman,
Purely hypothetical.
Are these usually death reports, were they completed and were they able?
Say it's any kind of a report. A council person requests documents the executive has through another entity, the medical examiner in the county.
Well, I think if they were completed documents and they were actually completed and able to be released, absolutely, I would tell them. But you know, completing documents and something that I have the ability to release and they might not be complete and until they are. But absolutely.
These would, in this hypothetical, these would be completed by the medical examiner, delivered to the executive, and they sat on the executive's, hypothetically, sat on the executive's desk for a week or two, when the council is very interested in those documents, as is the media. But you would come right to that council person and let them know. Because you're basically going behind the, you're basically...
If the council, if a document was completed and available for, absolutely, I would let council know.
Okay.
If they're available documents, absolutely.
Okay. That's all.
Simon.
Thank you. Congratulations on your nomination.
Thank you.
It's great to see you in that position. My question was about witness victim, but I want to go back to this EOC line of questioning. So I've been to that operations center during RNC, and it seems to be functioning well. If there's space issues for need, let's say conference or quiet places for communication, are there rooms in the Juvenile Justice Center available for spillover?
Thank you, Councilwoman. We have a small adjacent room that we're able to use, but some of those are occupied. So during an event, depending on the severity of the event, we've been able to use some of the rooms. It's just not something that there's not enough empty spaces that we consistently keep. And as you know, you never know when a disaster might start or how long it might go for operational periods. But we are able to use some adjacent spaces depending on the timing of things.
Is there a way to reserve specific space in that building, which is pretty large and typically underutilized? Or is that it's filled up where you can't have standing room reserved for your operations?
Most of it's filled up when we looked in the past, and also you want to be, when you have an operation and you do breakout rooms for small groups, you don't want them to be traveling all throughout the building. There's, close, concise in the event of an emergency. And the immediately adjacent rooms, as I mentioned, there's some. I think maybe on other floors in the building there might be larger ones, but again, I don't think that they're open and available. I haven't looked recently, but in the past we looked. So that's something that emergency management staff, because they actually operate their offices on the second floor over there, they continue to work with the building and opportunities, but I don't think that there's a bunch of space unused that we would be able to, Councilwoman. I'll follow up though on that.
I think in that hallway there could be a way to move existing other offices to a different floor.
I know we looked in the past, and I can be honest, I haven't looked recently, but I will follow up on that.
Because in the meantime, if you need space, I think that's really important that that's ready and available. I think those other offices would have little problem moving
necessarily, to second floor or whatever. But, okay, that, on to the next question. So I would ask you to look at that because this is important.
Absolutely.
If there's an adequate space, at least in the, for now, we've got to have that space. So my question was about witness victim that we had historically had in-house, right? I mean, and now it's part of the Family Justice Center. How is that working?
Sure. So we still have witness victim as an agency within Public Safety Justice Services. A great opportunity that they added the Family Justice Center years ago. So that's another function. Witness victim really has 3 components. So the 15 advocates that support advocacy throughout the court system. There's planning and programming, which is great things like Camp Hope, which they do, a week in the summer for kids that have seen trauma or been victims. They take them away, they teach them skills. It's really an amazing program. And then the third component is the Family Justice Center. And so there's staff assigned from witness victim to the Family Justice Center. And really what that is, it's kind of a one-stop shop for individuals, as you know, who, like a victim might come in and that might need a protection order. So there's an advocate there. We have partners that are usually there, like prosecutors or Cleveland Police, a one-stop shop for services as well as individuals to work together to provide those services. So it's still a function of witness victim. It just also has other agencies that also participate.
So there's a satellite. We were able to embed some of our staff in the Family Justice.
Correct. And I would say since COVID, the partner agencies haven't been physically coming, but prior they physically came and staffed at the Family Justice Center, and we hope that'll pick back up again. That's
I had concern historically that was overlapping too much with different, the domestic court has its own whole area for CPOs, and then you go, is it repetitive, or are you finding that it's actually being used to its capacity?
I think it works well. I really do. The Family Justice Center operates out of over by the Galleria, so it's not within the courthouse. So it really works well, and that one-stop shop is really valuable for the individuals that come in. Even with COVID, our staff and those individuals, there was a very short time that they took off, but they immediately came back and continued to provide that service. And for anyone coming in, even from the outside, even throughout COVID, that service was provided.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other council people who have not spoken have any questions? Not, we'll move into our second round, and we will start with Councilwoman Baker.
Yes, just a question we can take back to the Diversion Center. And I know that we've been working to try and utilize it to its capacity, and we've expanded it beyond the police usage of directing those to it. But how are we, now that it's in place and it's been there now for a bit, how are we measuring whether or not it's working? How do we know that the people that are sent there are then taken care of, maybe sent on to where more services are needed? How do we measure whether or not only just getting them there, but also measuring how the outcomes are, whether or not they no longer are committing crimes, they're off the opiates, whatever mental health was addressed? How do we gauge that?
Thank you. So as you probably know, Councilwoman, the Diversion Center is acute services, so 5 to 7 days. But individuals then are referred on to other services, for example, residential treatment to continue their services. So we're working with Adams Board as the provider to follow up with those agencies. Our contract with Adams Board has a number of metrics that they report to us every month. We go through those usually individually through the board meetings, but myself do, and even staff here. And making sure that some of those, now that we've been operating for some time, that we look at where clients go, and a large number of them don't go home from the Diversion Center. They're referred on to other services. Are they completing those services? And so that data and metrics, it's really important to see what might be working or what isn't. And so that's a critical component for all of us.
If I may follow, so how long has the Diversion Center been open?
Since May of 21.
Okay, so we've had almost a year.
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of reporting have you had in that time period? How do you see those that are coming in and being serviced and the Adams Board reporting. How does all that, are you satisfied with the results? Do you think we need to do better? Is there not enough data?
For the aftercare services, I would say that's a current focus. Really, the focus over the last year has been getting individuals into the center, expanding the admissions requirements, getting the base metrics for they're actually at the center, making sure that police awareness. We have regular, outside of the board meetings, we have regular meetings with all of our providers, and that focus recently is collecting some of this aftercare service data that we're speaking of. So I wouldn't say we have that data now, but it's a priority for all of us looking because 5 to 7 days is a small amount of time for someone who really needs a long time, and we want to make sure they're getting those services and they're working. I'd be happy to provide you with, we have reports and data. I'd be happy to provide you with those as we continue to receive them.
Do you anticipate an annual report, something that, annually you will say this started in May, so May of 2022, and then 23 and 24, so that we can start tracking?
I actually receive, thank you, I receive quarterly updates from the providers, and I have them in both a short and long form. So some of the aftercare service metrics that you're providing, we don't have the data, as I mentioned, moving forward, some of that data, but especially the short form, which really provides some of the key components of the center. I'm happy to provide those to you on a regular basis. I'm happy to. Yeah.
I understand that the intent right now is to get the diversion center used. I guess I'm just looking now that looks like we're accomplishing that. What does the aftercare look like?
Yeah.
What is really the result of why we even have people coming to the diversion center, not just for the few days, but also, especially those that are pivoted from the jail to the diversion center? What are the results of that? And it's too early, it sounds, but I would be interested in those reports once.
I think that's from my perspective and so many others, that's the most important part of it. So absolutely agree.
Councilwoman Conwell?
Through the chair to Brandy, how much PPE do you believe we will need to buy on an annual basis?
So as I mentioned, Councilwoman, we have the build out at the garage, and we have cash levels that we identified. So minimum levels in order to sustain if we come through another pandemic or another operation that we could provide PPE for 10 to 14 days. Excuse me. So right now, outside of gloves, we have everything's above cash levels that we currently have. Moving forward, there's a request with some of the ARPA funds, not a huge one, but to replace some of those gloves vacancies. But other than that, we are maintaining those cash levels. So it depends on the year. We also inventory each one of the products. For example, they have different expiration periods, so we make sure to swap them out prior to the expiration period. So moving forward, it'll be an adjustment, or it'll change every year. But I don't expect for us outside of the coming year's request with ARPA funds to have another large request anytime soon.
Okay, so what do you do with the items that you swap out?
So, for example, if there's something that's going to expire, if I'm answering your question, so we look to see, and if someone requests it and they request it in time before it expires, great. And what we said in our plan is if that doesn't happen and it's going to expire, then we're at least going to provide it to an agency that's going to use it, i.e., a hospital or a local agency, a residential facility, someone that's going to use it. We haven't gotten to that point, obviously, because a lot of this stuff has a long shelf life. But that's our plan, so that we don't throw any of it in the garbage, that we make sure to at least provide it to somebody that can use it before we replenish, but to maintain those cash levels that we have.
Okay, and give us an example of what may expire.
Sure, like even some of the, like gloves, it sounds crazy, but after so long, the elasticity in them goes, I mean, we're not talking about a year, but after some time. And so we just make sure the emergency management staff do a phenomenal job of over there tracking every piece of equipment. And so they watch, make sure to, if we do get a request for gloves, the one that's the oldest in our stock, that we make sure to provide that first. And if in fact we have a bunch of gloves that, let's say, are going to expire soon, then that's when they look at and provide them to an agency that can use them.
Are there any current plans for more PPE?
Again, I think I do have a request for the upcoming ARPA funds for It's not a huge request because, again, we have over cash levels of a lot of items. But I do have a small request from ARPA funds for PP replenishment.
Okay, and I guess my final follow-up would be, do you believe the county should have tests in stock for its residents? So I'm sure you've been watching HR committee and where we are with the mandatory policy for test kits. It looks like that they're in the queue to be ordered, even though the policy hasn't been voted on. What do you think you're gonna do with those test kits?
You know, the test kits, I wasn't as engaged with that conversation, to be honest with you. I think it worked well, the federal website where local municipalities can request kits, and I hope I'm answering your question. I think that worked well. Communicate with the health department and see what makes sense. The state sending things out to local libraries, I thought was a great idea and worked well. But for me, that worked well, but not something that I can speak on immediately.
Okay, so follow up on that committee. That's
Yes.
all. So you can catch up.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
is there I believe there's an expiration date on those tests?
Oh, absolutely, there would be, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
All right, with no further questions, we thank you, Brandy. You are a known quantity to us. But there have been many excellent questions asked. So at this time, I'm going to ask for a motion to move our nomination to approval for our full council for a second reading today.
So moved.
And ultimately third
Second.
reading on the 22nd. It has been properly moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. All right.
Thank you so much, council, much appreciated. Thank you.
All right,
You're
thank
welcome.
you. All meetings of the Cuyahoga County Council are open to the public under the Ohio Open Meetings laws. Under that law, council may go into executive session during a meeting for specifically authorized purposes. During executive session, council confers outside of the hearing of the public. Council may not make any decisions about any matters in executive session. All decisions are made in public. This afternoon, the council will go into executive session to discuss a collective bargaining matter, pending or imminent litigation, and purchase or sale of property. During this time, our live stream will be down, and we ask all those not specifically needed for the executive session to remain in council chambers. Council members will convene in the adjacent committee room A and will re-enter the meeting once the executive session has ended. Is there a motion to go into executive session for the purposes of discussing a collective bargaining matter pending or imminent litigation and purchase or sale of property?
So moved.
Second, Sharon.
Properly moved and seconded. Clerk, please call the roll on the motion to go into executive session.
Council President, first I would like the record to reflect that Ms. Stevens and Ms. Simons is in attendance. Calling the roll, Ms. Baker, Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney, Mr. Tuma,
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher, Mr. Schron,
Yes.
Ms. Conwell,
Yes.
Ms. Turner,
Yes.
Ms. Stevens. Ms. Stevens is here. Ms. Simon is here. And Council President Jones.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Ayes have it. We will adjourn the meeting for an executive session. We are reconvening the council meeting, and we are now back on the record. All right. Any miscellaneous business? If not, our committee of the whole meeting is adjourned, and we're going to take 5 minutes, well, let's say we'll start about 5:15. All right, that'll give our technical crew opportunity to get us set up. All right, again, our meeting is adjourned.